Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. So how today's going to go is I'm going to call Dennis up here in just a minute. He's going to give a financial update as of March 31st for Freedom Plaza. And then when he wraps up, we're going to move into our transitions of care presentation. Both of these presentations are going to be available hard copy at Stephanie's desk. We're also going to send them out with a memo tomorrow. And when we get to transitions of care, you're free to ask Dennis questions about the financials. When we start the transitions of care presentation, we're going to ask that you hold all your questions until the end. I think I put a little blurb in the weekly that said bring your paper and pencil to write your questions down. If we do the questions throughout, we'll never get through it. And I know people get antsy after about an hour. So with that, I'm going to bring Dennis up and he's going to give us the financial overview.
Good morning, good morning. So it looks like we're starting off with the most exciting part of the program first. So buckle your seatbelts. All right, so I actually might use this before. Let's see if it works. Okay, cool. So we're going to start off. This is a kind of a model presentation we're going to start using on a quarterly basis. In the past, I've presented some of this information. This is going to be a little more than typically you've seen. It's going to cover occupancy and a little more of the financial information. And I always preface it by saying that all the financial information that you're going to be seeing is something that we go over with the finance committee on a monthly basis, go into more detail. But this type of a presentation will probably be what you'll start seeing more on a quarterly basis, and then you'll also have the ability to get the hard copy, as Angie mentioned. So from an occupancy standpoint, again, this is looking at the first quarter, and we're in the middle right now of about finishing April, which is the start of the second quarter. But through the first quarter, you can see that are in independent living. Again, this is all average occupancy. So, on an average basis, we had 365.7 occupied units at a 425, putting our occupancy at an average of 86%. Our goal, of course, is to blow through the 90% kind of barrier and move up. And of course, we just touched it not too long ago. And then even though our sales continue to exceed budget, we've had a higher than normal number of transfers to the other levels of care. So trying to build that back up, but that's where that sits. Assisted living and memory care are doing fantastic with occupancy 98.8%, 93.1%. And then the health center had an average of 95 out of 113 for occupancy of 84%. This slide is just kind of giving you some quick net numbers as it relates to sales, refunds, and net attrition. As you can see, our sales actually exceeded budget by 1 in the first quarter, 11 against 10. Refunds or move-outs, which again includes transfers to assisted living, memory care, and skilled. We had 14 against a budget of 12, but still we ended up with our net attrition beating budget with 2.3 million against 1.7. And again, net attrition is basically your total entrance fees less refunds that are paid out. This next slide is going to kind of take the financial summaries I've presented in the past, and it's going to kind of spread it out over 3 slides instead of just 1 slide, and basically giving you a little more department level detail. The bottom number you see there is the total operating revenue. You can see that we're through the first quarter, our revenues are exceeding the budget by 320,000. Every level of care has either met or exceeded budget, with the exception of independent living, largely due again to the higher number of transfers out, which creates occupancy variances from a revenue perspective. A very bright spot is Innovative Home Services as well. They continue to do really well and have 6-figure variance now over budget. This screen continues on. Now we're looking at our expenses. It's kind of broken out again at more of a departmental perspective. Wages and benefits are all in one line there, and that's the biggest area we have variance, but keep in mind it's capturing the entire community, so it's not just one department. But our wages and benefits were over 161,000, but most of the other areas, with the exception of marketing, went over as we've been having more events than typically because we're again trying to build up occupancy. We had a higher than usual repair costs, and so our utility costs are a little higher. But for the most part, everything has been within budget. Our food and beverage has gone over a little bit. Obviously, there's been some additional costs with the new program. This screen is finishing the expenses, and it's looking at what we refer to as our non-controllable expenses. These are things like management fees that LCS charges, for their part of the program. Our total professional fees, total insurance and taxes. These are all areas that give us a net pickup over budget, close to 40,000. And then all of this is getting at the final number, which is our net operating income. It's a number that's very important to us, to LCS, to the owners, and it's moving in the right direction. Through the first quarter, our NOI has beat budget by close to 360,000, and I don't have it up here, but that is a margin percentage of 10.6%, which is excellent. It's been moving, now we're into double-digit margin percentage, and that's the direction, obviously, that they're wanting us to go. This here is just a very summarized version of the balance sheet. It's not something we typically present because it's not something we typically work with. We're normally working with the operating statement, but we got this from corporate, and this type of information is always presented in the audited financial statements that are obviously come out once a year, as well as the OIR report. But you're getting to see here just on a first quarter snapshot. But you can see there's total assets for Freedom Plaza of $92.7 million. Liabilities and equity also $92.7 million. About a quarter of that in terms of assets is more cash equivalent, more liquid type of assets. And the remainder of that would be like the minimum liquid reserve, property, plant, and equipment, the corresponding accumulated depreciation, and then with liabilities, 12.2 is current, and then the other 80 million is made up of like deferred revenue and other long-term liabilities, and then with a leaving equity of 220,000. And then finally, as we look into moving into the second quarter here, our goals are to continue to increase sales to reach and exceed 90% occupancy in independent living, as I mentioned earlier. And then we're always trying to make sure that we're meeting all the needs of the community, but doing it in a way where the controllable expenses are being held to budget as much as possible. And then with labor, our big priority last year was getting agency out of the community, and that was accomplished. So now our focus is kind of fine-tuning more with overtime scheduling. You can never get completely away from overtime, but we just want to make sure that it makes sense. We can substantiate, and so that's just an area of focus as we move going forward. Any questions?
What's the budget preparation schedule for next year?
So LCS, who obviously is working intimately with HealthPeak, the owners, has kind of a format where they actually just started it in April. They do kind of a little, I call it a 30,000 feet flyover, and kind of just start to get our hands around as we move into 2025. Getting our, first we want to get our hands around how does the rest of 2024 look, and then it'll be, as we move through the year in July, there'll be another, more detailed. And then finally, when we get into August, that's when we're into the meat of the budget process.
Are the 2023 results out yet? Year-end statement?
The audited financials and the OIR statement, that is not out yet, but it will be very soon. because there's like a timing requirement that they have to meet anyway. So when it is out, we'll be letting you know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
I'm just gonna add a couple comments. Dennis, great job on the financial presentation. And while we're having a really solid 2024 so far, from a financial perspective, you know, things can change on a dime. So I continue to focus on that with the department heads, because it takes one month of poor occupancy at Plaza West, or one liability insurance claim, that can wipe out all of the success we've had so far this year. So it's really important for us to stay focused on managing our finances. The other comment I will make, while we are super excited that we are in double digits when it comes to operating margin, something to keep in perspective is that prior to the pandemic, we were well over 15% in operating margin. And we are also operating at about almost $7 million of net operating income. So based on where we are right now, we're trending to hope we should be a little over $3 million of net operating income this year. While it's excellent and we're going in the right direction, we're still far from where we were in 2019. So we're continuing to try to operate the community, you know, being good stewards of your money, being as fiscally responsible as we can be, but also trying to provide the best service that we can. So it's a fine balance, and we continue to work hard at that. And I know you all know you can always present your concerns or ask questions, and we're happy to provide any information that you want to see regarding the financial statements. So now we're going to move on to our transitions of care presentation. We have a couple guests here today. I'm going to cover some of the slides. Lisa Frank is going to do some talking, as well as Arlene Jacobson from Innovative Home Services. Brian from Therapy is going to talk about therapy and home health. And then Kim Habercorn is going to come up and talk about assisted living and memory care, and she has some of her key team members here that she's going to introduce. So basically what we're going to talk about today, and none of us are going to read verbatim from these slides. We're going to talk about what's on the slides, and like I said, we're going to provide you a copy of this presentation. But what we're talking about today is the whole concept of moving to a life plan continuing care community. It's a place where all the pieces of the continuum of care are right here on our campus. And we're going to kind of talk about how you go from one area to the other, and sometimes it's not in a linear line. You may bounce around that continuum and come back to independent living at some point through the duration of your stay here. And our goal here is to sort of paint a picture of what that looks like. And we're going to stop at assisted living and memory care today, but we're going to do a part 2 of this presentation that includes Plaza West, where Chris Grella will come up and bring some of his key team members and talk about what a stay at Plaza West looks like. But today we're going to start with the other parts of the continuum. And this sort of lists them all out. So we have independent living, assisted living, memory care, Plaza West, we have Innovative Home Services, we have home health, which we partner with Bon Secours on our Medicare home health business. We have hospice, and we have the hospital. And you all are in independent living. So independent living means you're still here, you're independent, you take care of yourself, you're just enjoying the amenities that are provided as part of your life care agreement with Freedom Plaza. We do things like provide meals and housekeeping and some transportation services for you, but you don't need any help taking care of yourself in independent living. Sometimes people do need some help temporarily, depending on maybe there's a health event and they need for a short period of time some assistance in the apartment, and that's what home health and or Innovative Home Services is for. And with that, I'm gonna call Lisa up and she's gonna talk about resident services. Use both hands.
Good morning. So we were going to talk a little bit about my role here, especially with working through the continuum that we have. My role is to help residents to be more informed about their healthcare decisions and how that looks for them. We help with residents to set up like home health services, which we do need physicians ordered for, so we might need to help make an appointment to see your physician, which would be the same thing for therapy. Innovative home services, we will refer some to them. We don't necessarily need a doctor's order. Well, they work on that on their end. However, sometimes I will talk to you about what the difference is between like home care, private duty versus having the Medicare home health in there, which I think Brian will talk a little bit more about later too. Another part of my role is I oversee the EMT department. Everyone knows we have EMTs here 24 hours a day. They respond to all the emergent needs of the residents though. So if you should pull your pull cord, push your emergency pendant, or call the front desk to get assistance, then they come provide that assistance. And then him and I, the EMT and I, will discuss what that looks like if there's needed some help after that. The EMTs also work at the front desk to help the front desk, except for Sherry during the Monday through Friday 7 to 3 shift. She's in the wellness center with me, helping with a lot of other things, with the lab services and things I'm sure a lot of you used. And then she also helps with help managing the in-room dining, the medical deliveries. So it's another part of my responsibilities. We do a collaborative care meeting, which we do meet weekly, which I would meet with a lot of the department heads. We get together and discuss, like, if people have noted changes with residents, or something medical going on, and then we try to follow up and see if there are help that is needed. The team would be Angie, the executive director, the innovative home services manager, the home care liaison, which it could be, usually it's someone from therapy, the assisted living director, which is Kim, therapy director, Amy, the executive assistant, Stephanie, and then other department heads will come, and if they have information to share that they've noted some issues that they've seen with residents. The benefit to that is it helps give you peace of mind. We know that our goal is to try to keep you in independent living, so sometimes you may need a short-term assistance with home health, innovative home services. That could be ongoing as well. But it also helps provide your safety and your health and your wellness to keep you in the apartment as long as possible. We definitely want to help maintain your quality of life here. Brian, do you want to come up? He's going to talk a little bit about our home care and outpatient therapy as well.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian. I was recently promoted to Director of Outpatient and Home Health Services here on the campus. So if you need any therapy needs, I'd probably be the one that you need to come to. My office will be down in the therapy gym where Wendy usually is. I'm sure everybody knows Wendy here. But we'll talk about the continuum of care here. So usually when you go to the hospital, or if you have a stay at a nursing facility as Plaza West or Sun Towers or Palm Gardens, something like that, usually when you come home, the doctor will order home health. If the doctor has written a script for home health with Bon Secours, one of our therapists here on campus will see you. Usually a nurse will come out and do a start of care, which is usually a lengthy process. It's probably like an hour or 2 long appointment. And then they'll schedule the therapists to come out and do evaluations. However, the doctors can choose one of many home health companies. So if they choose a different home health company like Infinity or Ace or Angels, something like that, one of our therapists probably will not come and see you for the home health. However, after home health is done, you can transition to outpatient therapy, which is a little more and on an intense schedule, on an intense level, it's a little more intense. We can do different things in different settings where the home health is mostly you're homebound, you're not able to leave the home. Outpatient is when you're leaving the home, you're going out into the community. So we can do community reintegration. We can go outside and do different activities on different surfaces, whether it's grass or gravel or cement. We can get you back into activity levels. I've played a hole of golf on our golf course with some patients because that's what they wanted to do, was get back into golf and swinging properly and that. So we can do different activities. We're also starting to do aquatic therapy. We had a presentation a couple weeks ago on that. So there's different things we can do with the outpatient rehab. We do have occupational therapy, physical and speech therapy if you're needed. Speech therapy isn't just for speaking or talking, it's also if you have swallowing issues or if your diet has been downgraded to a puree or mechanical soft diet. The speech therapist can usually work on that to get you back to a regular diet. I guess we are answering questions at the end. Is that it? Okay. Well, I think that is all I have, and then if you have any questions at the end, I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you. The right. Okay. I was going to introduce first Thea Moy Williams, who is the manager now for Innovative Home Services. Some of you probably already know her. She's the one who answers the phone and takes care of all of your needs as far as scheduling and everything. And she's doing a wonderful job since she's come to us from assisted living. So, thank you, Thea Moy. So, Innovative Home Services, we're the private duty home care agency that's located here that services only the residents for Freedom Plaza. And we provide things that consist of medication reminders, escorts to doctor's appointments, or fun escort visits like going to visit family, friends, shopping, or any extra housekeeping needs that you all may have. Our services are not billable to any medical insurance or private insurance, but some long-term care insurances will cover our services. So some of the other services provided here is hospice care, which I have a long history with hospice. I worked in hospice on and off for 20 years between Suncoast of the Hospice of the Florida Suncoast. It's changed now to, I think it's called Empath, as well as LifePath Hospice. So I worked in the field as a nurse, and also before coming here, I was a manager of a hospice team. And I continue to work with hospice for patients that residents that may be on hospice here. If we have medication management in place, I work closely with the hospice team as well. So the philosophy of hospice is a holistic approach where they take care of the mind, body, and spirit, as well as the social needs of the families of the residents. Hospice is covered by Medicare or TRICARE and private insurance. So I think that's all I have, and I'll give it to Kim now.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kim, and I want to introduce a couple of team members. So first of all is Whitney Milton, and she is new to Freedom Plaza Assisted Living and Memory Care as the Health and Wellness Director, but she is not new to the campus. She has worked many, many years in different roles, but primarily at Plaza West. So excited to have Whitney. She's an RN. She's come into the team and done a lot of great things with putting some systems in place that we needed and providing structure. But more than that, she's done an excellent job with team building, communication with the team, and enhancing the culture and making it fun. So this is National Nurses Week, so congratulations, Whitney. Glad to have you. Connie Nixon, Memory Care Program Director, so many people know her. She's in charge of memory care programming, which is Heartfelt Connections. That's Life Care Services signature program. If you have any questions about memory care, please come see us, come see Connie. We are also getting ready for a June open house. We just had a $2.5 million renovation of assisted living and memory care. So we're gonna have a Freedom Plaza resident-only open house, and we'll be sure to let everybody know when that is. And then you'll get a chance to see Connie in action. So, thanks, Connie. Then we have Sean Pedrick. Most of you know him. He was working in independent living for a little bit, and then luckily we have him in assisted living and memory care. He is the sales manager. He will help coordinate a transition or a move to assisted living memory care, help with all the details, and he is the #1 guy for other duties as assigned. So, all right. Thanks, Sean. A little bit about assisted living. I always like to say we're kind of like the middleman, where independent living may be a little overwhelming. You may need more assistance. You may want the peace of mind 24-hour nursing or assistance with medications or anything, but you don't quite need skilled nursing. So assisted living is both at the end, which the health and wellness director, she couldn't be here today, is Claudine Jackson. She's been here for 25 years. So Claudine and the staff at the end do a great job, and they have a lot of tenure down there. So both the assisted living at the inn and at Freedom Plaza Assisted Living, formerly Homewood, they have the same license, a standard license. So while there is difference in the environment and the look and the feel, they can still provide the same amount of care. So for assisted living, that is something that you would work with Lisa and coordinate with your family or whoever you want involved in your decision, working with Lisa and your physician. Physician just completes a simple form. We call the form by the form number 1823. Some of you may have heard about that, but that's just a simple form saying that you need assistance. Basic services include housekeeping, 3 meals a day, snacks, personal care assistance, depending on what you need. So when you come into assisted living, Claudine and Whitney would do a personalized assessment to make sure that you're getting the amount of care you need or the appropriate care you need, that you don't need too much care or staff's not coming in to assist you with the shower and you can do your shower yourself. That'd be awkward. So the other thing is under your entry fee contract, you receive a discounted rate. So you pay less than residents who would come in from the outside community. In assisted living and memory care, we have about 75% of our residents are life care residents. So when we get to that point where we don't have a wait list or there isn't a life care resident that needs assisted living or memory care, then we can market to the outside. So about 25% of our residents right now are outside residents. Life care residents always have priority. Long-term care insurance. Many people have long-term care insurance, and that does cover the daily cost, whatever your policy states, for assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The VA Aid and Attendance Program does have a program for veterans or their spouses to pay for assisted living and memory care. But as you can see on the bottom line there is an income limit to qualify. Some residents eventually do qualify, some do not. If you need more assistance or just want some more general information on the VA Aid and Attendance Program, you can come see me or the ROC office and we'll be happy to give you some general information. The physical move to assisted living. First of all, we created last year a transfer resource list. We call it the move out list, transition list. Lisa and Stephanie have a copy of that. What that list tells you, it tells you everything from changing your mail, what to do with your cable box, everything you need to know about a transition. So also resources for disposal, resources for moving. Lisa and Stephanie have that, so if you'd like to get a copy of that, we'll make copies of that just so you can have if you didn't get it on the first round. In assisted living, you bring your own furniture, your own belongings, it's your own apartment. So it's not like skilled nursing where we have a hospital bed and a nightstand and a chair. You bring your own furniture, you make it your own home. Going back to long-term care insurance, like I said, long-term care insurance does cover the expense. There is some information they need from us, generally as a copy of our license, and then information from our nurses stating the type of care you need to make sure you meet their plan qualifications. With long-term care insurance, we will assist in monthly filing of the claim, which is basically just sending a copy of the statement to the long-term care insurance company and stating you still live there. And then what they do is they reimburse you. They do not reimburse us. So you will receive that. So if you have any questions about long-term care insurance, your policy specific, just give me a call and I can walk you through it and help you with that. Memory care programs, the Arbors. Like I said, memory care program, Heart Buck Connection, we have an excellent program. We have won gold status for Life Care Services signature programming, and Whitney and the nurses, other nurses and the team there, and Connie do a great job. So excited to have y'all come down, but you can come down anytime and see what we do and hang out for a little bit. It's a fun time there.
So I'm gonna bring up the end of this presentation. And for those of you who are newer residents, if I did your closing, you've probably heard me talk about this. So often, you know, I have questions from residents or new residents that are just getting ready to move in that say, well, can you make me move to assisted living? Well, you know, the really simple answer is yes. However, we don't like to do that. So I think I'll be here 16 years in August, and I think we've had to play that card twice since I've been here. You know, the move to a higher level of care is meant to be a collaborative decision with you, your family, or whoever your designated advocate is, your physician, as well as working with Lisa and any other team members here at Freedom to make it a smooth transition for you. But if there's some sort of, you know, we occasionally, you know, I know this is probably surprising, we have residents that dig their heels in and say, I'm not moving. So in those situations, we do have what we call a healthcare committee, and it's a little fluid. I'll say I'm the president of the healthcare committee, but we rely on the other team members that have a pretty good relationship with you and understand your care needs. So sometimes, a lot of times that's Lisa, because she's our nurse, right? But other people that can kind of weigh in on that is also our medical director, or whoever your primary care physician is. It can also be maybe Stephanie. Maybe you have a really close relationship with Stephanie and you talk to her all the time. It might be Martha, or it might be Teresa. Somebody who has really pretty consistent interaction with you and can recognize when, you know, maybe you're just to a point that you just need more care than we can give you here in independent living. But again, that's not something I like to pull the trigger on. I want to work with you. I want you to understand that any decision that we're trying to push is because we think it's in your best interest and for your safety. And as Lisa mentioned before, is we want you to be in your independent living apartment as long as you possibly can be and have a good quality of life and be safe. So there's no ulterior motive here. We have plenty of empty apartments to sell. We don't need any more. So we want you to stay as long as you can be safe. We want you to have, you know, your advanced directives in place. So that could be a power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, living will, all those things. And you'd be surprised how many times we get to a point where a resident may have recently received a dementia diagnosis, or maybe should have received it a lot longer ago, and they have none of these documents in place. And then it gets really difficult to get an advocate put in place. So I advise you, I mean, that's the exception. Most of you all have those documents, but if you don't, I encourage you to have those forms, and you can do it really simply. Quite honestly, for myself, I went online and printed one out, and I filled it out, and I signed it and had it notarized, just to have those in place, because we want to make sure your wishes are fulfilled in the event that you're unable to make those healthcare decisions for yourself. The other thing I will say, it's important to consider when you're naming that advocate for you that they're readily available. So it's not super helpful if your power of attorney is a child that lives in Europe. We need to be able to get in touch with that person and have conversations, and really figure out what the best next steps are. So keeping in mind that this person should be readily available. They don't have to be local, but they have to be accessible by phone, by email, by text message. The length of time to vacate your IL apartment. So I tell people there is no deadline, right? I think the key thing to consider is that the monthly fee continues as long as your belongings are in the apartment. So that's some incentive to not drag it out too terribly long. I will say typically, if a resident transitions to a higher level of care, there may be an overlap of about 2 weeks. 2 weeks to a month where maybe somebody moves to assisted living and then the family is working on vacating that independent living apartment. Talking about your entry fee or My Choice refund if you move to a higher level of care. So as long as you are still a resident somewhere at this community, you do not get any portion of your entry fee or your My Choice supplemental entry fee refunded. Those refunds are triggered when the contract is terminated. So whether you have to physically leave the community altogether or when you pass away, those things are what triggers those refunds. Talking about Care for Life. So Care for Life is our financial hardship program, and we've actually tightened up that process in a good way, where we have a standard application. So like if you foresee yourself in the next 6 months to a year, maybe spending down your assets to a point that you think you're going to need some financial assistance to supplement your monthly fee, we want you to reach out to Dennis, and he can review what that process looks like with you. You can certainly ask for a copy of the application now just to see what it looks like and the documents we require. But if you're an independent living, I know there's I've heard rumors before where you think we take all your income. It doesn't work that way. I have my own bills to pay. I don't want to pay anybody else's bills if I don't have to. So you keep your income, you still manage all your monthly expenses. We just adjust your monthly fee accordingly to fit what the income you have left is after all your other expenses. And we do factor in things like personal spending. We have a lot of conversations about what you do on a regular basis and what's important to you. We're pretty reasonable people, and we want you to still have quality of life and enjoy your time here at Freedom Plaza. So with that, if you want more information about Care for Life, you can certainly set up a time to talk to Dennis for more details. If you do apply for Care for Life, we submit that application to my boss. She reviews it and approves it. And then we sort of do a yearly analysis on what the need needs to be. Maybe we need to adjust that allowance. Things have happened where residents have inherited money Usually it's not that way, it's the other way. But, you know, the monthly fee still goes up every year, so we have to adjust that Care for Life allowance accordingly. So we do an annual review on the on what your personal situation is and adjust accordingly. So that's it. And we did go through that pretty quickly. And so we're open for questions. Anything you have to ask about anything that was talked about today, all the presenters are still here. What additional information can we give you? Ruth?
Yeah, this is for Teresa.
Why were we $50,000 over for the quarter?
I can find an answer if you want me to, Teresa.
So I'll talk about, that question was about food and beverage expense was over in the first quarter by about $50,000. I will tell you, it wasn't necessarily tied to our new dining program. There's some other noise in there. We just did the AL memory care renovation, and with that we had to do all of our meals on disposables because we couldn't use the kitchen, and that wasn't something we planned on from an operating perspective, so we had to buy a lot of disposables for assisted living and memory care. We also are really trying to focus on improving the menu selections in those higher levels of care. We are trying to mirror some of the choices that you all have up here, mainly because a lot of our residents are, when you come from independent living to assisted living, you want something at least comparable when you're eating in assisted living, memory care, and at Plaza West. So that's also sort of contributing to that variance. Not to say that we didn't go over in food. I think we've gone over in some other supplies as well. I think a bulk of that variance is supply related, but also we do something, we move things to an account called Food for Events. So Food for Events is anything related to like the donuts back here, right? So anything that's not related to a resident meal goes to this Food for Events category. And Dennis had mentioned we're doing more marketing events, we're doing other things, which is causing that account to be over budget, but it all hits the food and beverage line, but it's not tied to the resident meals.
Do you see that hopefully going down over the year?
Yeah, our goal is to level that out as much as possible without, compromising any offerings that we're giving. So our renovation is done at assisted living and memory care, so that disposable expense has ended. As far as the Food for Events, I'm not sure what that's gonna look like for the rest of the year. We'll certainly do as much as we can to mitigate that expense, but again, that's sort of a guess when you're budgeting. Our budgeting, you try to look historically, and then you try to do your best guess looking forward. And it was really hard to do that coming out of the pandemic because our operation was so different. So we're sort of learning again what our trends are. So if we can't get that completely back in line, we'll certainly account for that when we budget for next year. I don't know, Teresa, if there's anything you want to add to that.
No, I just don't want to hijack the meeting with dining, so let's get back to transitions of care. Very good. I have somebody back here.
The VA assistance, is there someone here that can help with that, or?
Sure. The Rock office can provide more information on VA aid and attendance, as well as Kim. So you can give her a call and set up a time to talk to her, or see the Rock office, and they can give you more details on that.
Okay, and if one goes from here to assisted living, is there any additional charges other than personal medication?
So the contract there we go. There could be, depending on the route you select, there could be an additional charge. So is there a way to keep your cost exactly the same? Yes. Some people go down there and say, well, I want a combined suite. There's an additional cost for that. So if you want to look at what it would cost for use individually to go to all the different room types in assisted living, Sam can provide that information to you. And then certainly I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity, and Kim mentioned doing an open house in the near future to go down and look at the apartment. So you can kind of plan out what that looks like for you down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The occupancy rates in advanced care are pretty high. They're well into the 90s. Are there any concerns from a capacity point of view as we continue to age and have people in a detrimental state for a longer period of time?
So I'll start with the easy one, and that's Plaza West. No, I don't see any challenges with Plaza West. Just because we call it churn and burn at the health center, people aren't there long. We do have a long-term care unit, and there are residents there that live there on a permanent basis, but for the most part, we have a bed come available every day that somebody can move into. I think in my tenure here, there might have been one time that we were completely full and somebody wanted to come to Plaza West and the hospital was gracious enough to keep them one more day until we were able to get a room for them. Now, assisted living and memory care is a little different in a lot of ways. So right now, we do not have any assisted living apartments. That doesn't mean there are people floundering anywhere. We make sure that if they are still at independent living and they've decided they want to move, it's typically not emergent. You've been in independent living. We make sure they have the help they need in the apartment until that apartment becomes available. And we sort of triage that on a priority need basis as apartments open up. They don't open up as frequently as Plaza West does, but they do come available pretty frequently. But there is language in your contract that says if you want to go to assisted living and we don't have an apartment for you, you can pick a local assisted living here and go there. And so if, I'm just making up numbers to keep it simple, if it would cost you $5,000 a month to go to assisted living here at Freedom Plaza, on the street is $6,000, we're going to cover the $1,000 delta until we're able to get you back to one of our assisted living buildings into an apartment. So we will accommodate those needs. As far as a capacity perspective, I don't see an issue right now. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't have to consider something like that down the road. Because it fluctuates too. Like there was a point in time last year when I think we had 10 apartments. So it ebbs and flows. It's Homewood and it's the Inn, separate assisted livings. There's no difference in the care they provide. It's more personal preference on the environment you want to be in when you want to go to assisted living. Any other questions? EF stands for entry fee. The entry fee you paid when you moved in here. The difference between independent living and assisted living, and Kim can come up and correct me if I'm wrong, but independent living means you can live independently without help in your apartment. People go to assisted living when they start to need help with their activities of daily living. Things like showering, getting dressed, going to the bathroom, managing their medication, things like that. So as you start to need help with those things that you have to do every single day, that's when people start to consider that move to a higher level of care.
In the balance sheet statement, the deferred liabilities, could you just tell us what are some of the three major liabilities that make up that amount?
So the deferred liabilities, I'm going to guess, and then I'll let Dennis correct me if I'm wrong. I think the biggest deferred liability is our potential entry fee refunds. So when people move in, we amortize those entry fees down over 4 years. But for the first 4 years, there's an amount that would be owed to you if you decide to leave Freedom Plaza. Also, we have a few people, and it's not as common as it used to be, that select the refundable contract, which is a 40% refund. So the bulk, if not all, the bulk of our deferred liabilities are those entry fee refund liabilities.
Where's the future service obligation?
So are you asking where that report is physically, or what does it look like?
Where's the number?
I don't know that off the top of my head. So I'll explain what a future service obligation is. And it's a report that actuaries do for communities like Freedom Plaza that look at different demographic information like age and gender of your population, age at move-in, the historical trends of your community. How long are people spending in independent living and assisted living and memory care and the health center? And what are those discounts you're gonna have to provide them for those services down the road? And it sort of projects out, like, are you on a track financially as a community to be able to uphold your contractual obligations? So the good news is, we're fine. That's good, they do those all the time, but also just sort of highlights why it's so important for us to be prudent financially, make sure we're managing our expenses. We're not, you know, I've heard from some residents, well, you have all these open apartments, why don't you just discount the entry fees? Well, those entry fees are what pays for those future service obligations. So while it's sort of a short-term benefit, in the long term can be detrimental. So you have to do a fine balance of incentivizing folks to move here and covering those future obligations. So the entry fee, what is it? What's it cover? What's it do? So there's two major components of an entry fee. So while you're not buying your apartment, there's a real estate component to your entry fee. When I say that, I mean, if you decide that you're gonna move into a larger apartment here, a bigger portion of your entry fee is tied to the apartment you select. And then the other portion is for your future health care. So, but the split of those two things depends on the square footage of the apartment that you move into. And, you know, people ask me, I can't really articulate it more than that. There are people way smarter than me that figure out the pricing for those entry fees and what percentage covers what. But if that's something you want to know specifically, I can get more information for you.
If you want to arrange a tour of the different levels of care, how do you do that?
So you can call Sean. He can give you a tour of assisted living and the arbors. If you want to get a tour of Plaza West, he can probably do that too, but we also have some folks at Plaza West that can do tours. You would just call the admissions office, and I think that's one of the numbers that's in the phone directory.
In this segment on in-home services, I noted it said hospice care is not covered by the entry fee contract.
Correct.
So if you have to have hospice care, is that done here on the campus, or do you get sent out somewhere?
So the question is related to hospice care, and it is not covered by your life care contract, but it is covered by your medical insurance. And where hospice is provided is typically up to you. We have some folks elect to stay in their apartment here in independent living with hospice services. Some folks at the very end of life elect to go to the hospice house, which is just down the street. And then we also have some folks that decide to go to Plaza West and have hospice services there. So the beauty of hospice is they will provide those services where you want them to provide those services.
Do you have any idea what you can expect for a cost for hospice care?
It should be covered by your insurance, but that's not my area of expertise. I don't know, Arlene, if, yeah.
Based on my brother-in-law's experience, there was a problem with hospice not being covered by Medicare, if it was in-home or some other thing like that. That's something that I would like to know about.
So my advice would be, if you want to know how hospice is covered under your personal insurance, is to call and ask. Because we do have folks, and I encourage you to do that for any type of healthcare services. Because we have folks that go to Plaza West and, you know, they have traditional Medicare and a supplement. And that supplement, there are some supplemental policies that have no skilled nursing benefits. There are some supplemental policies that will only cover 10 days of copay. If you have a Medicare Advantage plan, they may cover the first 7 days, and then there's a $100 a day copay after the first 7 days. So my recommendation is that you call your own insurance carrier and find out what the skilled nursing benefits are and the hospice benefits, so you can sort of have a good idea if that situation ever presents itself to you.
But if you have long-term care, would that be covered?
With long-term care insurance, it's a private insurance, and every policy is different. So I will say if I'm making a sweeping statement about long-term care insurance, is they will typically cover some in-home private duty care, assisted living, and skilled nursing. Some only cover skilled nursing. The older policies are usually specifically skilled nursing. There's typically an elimination period that says we will start paying after you reside in that level of care for 30, 60, 90 days. And then you know, as Kim mentioned, we will submit paperwork on your behalf. They pay you, you pay us. It might. Again, I would look at your policy if you have a long-term care policy. Any other questions?
What is Plaza West?
Plaza West is our nursing home, but I don't like to say the word the words nursing home. We call it the healthcare center. So if you have a health event and you go to the hospital and you need to come back and get some physical therapy at Plaza West before you're able to come back to the apartment. So it's our healthcare center, primarily short-term rehab services, but we do have a long-term care unit where there are residents that live there permanently. Any other questions? We must have done a pretty good job. Again, we will, yes?
I'm very confused. We're new, and when we talked to the salespeople, it was, you're gonna pay this much a month, and we will cover you for life, no matter which facility you're in. And now I'm seeing a whole bunch of add-ons.
Well,
I don't understand.
There is a way that is not, that is true. So let me say that first. And what I would encourage you to do is go see Dennis or Sam, and they can show you. So as a couple, if one person goes to a higher level of care, the second person fee goes off and follows them. You might get two separate bills, but they should total the same thing. And I will also make a couple comments about incidental or ancillary costs at those higher levels of care. In assisted living, it's really minimal. It's probably pretty similar to what you would pay extra here. So if you go to beauty shop, or not even, because we don't even bill for that anymore, but guest meals. But if you want us to purchase things like certain medical supplies for you, or nutritional supplements, or incontinence products, we would bill you for those, but you can also supply them yourself. So pretty minimal when you're in assisted living and memory care. Once you transition to Plaza West and you're there on a permanent basis, there could be some more significant medical additions, like specialty medical equipment you may require, but none of which should be a surprise. All those things should be discussed in care plan meetings. You, your family, whoever your advocate is, should be aware before you see it on a bill. So, and all those things are ordered by your doctor. So Plaza West can't give you anything and charge for it unless your doctor orders it. We have to have a written order for everything. So I think a lot of these things are going to be on a case-by-case basis. And if you want to see specifically how this looks for you, because it's dependent on what your current monthly fee is too, you just schedule some time with Dennis or Sam. They can give you what the pricing looks like. We're happy to give you what those ancillary price sheets are now. That doesn't mean that's what they're going to be when you're there, but it's a good idea, a good reference point. And we're happy to provide all that information to you.
Thank you.
All right, well, have a great day. Again, these presentations will be at Stephanie's desk, and we will email them out with the memo tomorrow.